Big, warm welcome for the President and CEO of CUNA, Mr. Jim Nussle.
Good morning, Las Vegas. I noticed my wife did not stand up during the winning portion of the gambling. I would like to recognize Karen. She's sitting right out here. Karen Nussle. And I was not standing backstage either. We haven't even tried gambling yet. We'll work on that before the week is out. Hey, we are on Facebook Live today. Let's welcome all of the folks that are tuning in on Facebook Live. I want to make a difference. I want to change the world. I don't know how you feel, but I want a big, hairy, audacious goal. And to me, it's, let's go change the world. I want to make a difference. And I think the way you make a difference is by making a difference in the lives of friends and family and neighbors, your community. That's really making a difference. We're not going to be invited to maybe cure cancer or a lot of different big goals, but we can make a difference in the lives of the people around us. And I'm proud to tell you, I'm a member of a team that does that every single day, America's Credit Unions. And I want to welcome you to the America's Credit Union Conference. We have an opportunity to change the world every single day in the lives of the people that we represent. When we do that, we talk a lot about teams. The America's Credit Union team is a big team. There's no question about it. But when we talk about teams, I think sometimes we lose what that definition is. And when I think of teams, I think of, and I'm gonna bare my soul. I've been in counseling for this for quite some time. It's finally caught up to me. I'm a diehard Chicago Cubs fan. All right, I know. Yeah. See, now, a picture like that starts making me cry, right? I mean, my grandmother was a diehard Cubs fan. In fact, I inherited from her a box seat, literally a box seat from Wrigley Field. She passed away. She was born in 1908, which was the last time the Cubs won the World Series. Every time she watched the Cubs, she'd get out of her very comfortable lazy boy chair, kind of like these couches up in front, and she'd get in that little wooden box seat to watch the Cubs. And she never, even though she was a diehard fan, she never saw a World Series. Last year, I got to go. In fact, got to go with my good buddy in the credit union movement, Tom Kane, and his wife. We had a great time. And it was the ultimate experience if you're a fan. Fans all over the world were crying and weeping. There were people who went to the grave sites of their parents just to celebrate this amazing victory as a fan. We've got credit union fans too. I get to travel the country and talk to credit union fans all the time. I met one just yesterday who was helping us set up the conference room here, who came up to me. He said, "You're with credit unions? I love credit unions." He said, "I've been a member of credit unions all my life, and I'm a big fan of credit unions." I thought to myself, you know what? I'm glad you're a fan. But there's a difference between fans and players. No one ever called me to say, "Hey, Jim, I'd love you to come in and play center field for the Chicago Cubs." I never even got a call to be the bat boy. And there's going to be some people who say, yeah, the fans in the field make a difference. They're going to say, you know, that 10th man, if you will, makes a difference to a baseball club, or the 6th man in a basketball, or whatever it might be. But I got to tell you, when it comes to credit unions, we have a unique opportunity to get out of the stands, to not just be a fan, but to get on the field and be a player on this team. And frankly, that's what we need if we're going to be successful. So if we're going to make a difference, I need you to be on this team. And I want to just tell you right off the bat, I'm all in. I'm all in. And I think we need people to dedicate themselves to be all in for credit unions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means today, because we need that if we're going to be successful in moving forward and making a difference in the lives not only of the people that we serve, but ensuring that credit unions are going to be here for years to come. See, right now we've got about 6,000 credit unions with about 273, almost 300,000 people who work in credit unions. We've got about 70 or so, or excuse me, about 58,000, 78,000, is that what it is? 70,000 folks who work on boards, all right, that are the volunteers. Many of you are here today. That adds up to a big team. And you might wonder, you might think to yourself, well, if you're already walking in the front door of a credit union because you work there, or you're on the board, or you're a volunteer, you must already be on the team. But I got to tell you, I'm not sure that we are all in it. I'm not sure that we know the why behind credit unions the way we need to if in fact we're going to build the kind of team we need to be successful. Knowing the why of what we do, who we do it for, the how of what we do. The why behind credit unions is as important today as it ever has been in our entire history. For some, I understand they come to a credit union and it's just a paycheck. We've got to turn that paycheck into a cause, into a mission, into a movement again if we're going to be successful. And why? Because I think if we're in a situation where we're going to be successful, we've got to deal with the fact that there's disruption coming in our marketplace. I believe it's possible that the future relevance of credit unions is in fact in jeopardy. I don't think we have the luxury anymore of just saying, credit unions are always going to be here, it's just a given. We can just assume that. Maybe 20 years ago we could do that. Maybe at conferences 10 years ago, we didn't see the kind of disruption on the horizon that we see today. But I believe the future of credit unions is exactly what's at stake, our relevance in the future. With credit unions, I think we have to ask the question, are we going to be here in 10 or 15 years? Not because we're negative, not because we don't have hope, not because we don't have a plan, but because at any moment, something might come into the atmosphere, someone might come into our marketplace that's going to make that pretty difficult to maintain. And I just think back, I think, were there other conferences held in this room? Did Kodak have a conference in this very room? Did Sears Roebuck have a conference in this room, or Sports Authority or Borders Books, where they sat around and they patted themselves on the back and they said, boy, we've got a great industry. We help people. We provide them books, or we provide them sports equipment, or, oh my gosh, how could you think of anybody that would take a picture without film? And now we do it every single day without thinking about it. Did they sit at a conference and pat themselves on the back, as opposed to now becoming a footnote on Wikipedia? We don't want to be a footnote in Wikipedia, but we can't just assume that that is going to always be the case, that we're going to be here and be successful. It's the reason we have the CUNA GAC. It's the reason we have this conference. Some people wonder, they say, well, why do you meet in Vegas? Well, that may be another question. But why do you meet in 114 degrees in Las Vegas and talk about the future of credit unions? It's because people need credit unions today like they never have before. You just think about the things that people are dealing with, whether it's, you hear statistics where, people can't come up with $500 to meet an emergency that they might be dealing with, or, they want to send kids to school, or they want to buy their first car so they can get to work and keep a job. I mean, all of those kinds of things are the financial mud puddles that we all know people deal with. But there's also dreams. Dreams of owning a home, dreams of building a business, dreams of having a better life than maybe the one that their parents had. And those dreams are dreams that we make real across the tables of our credit unions, sitting member to member, people helping people every single day. What CUNA does is we support, protect, unify, and advance that credit union movement. That's what we get up every morning and drive to work to do, is to make sure that future relevance of credit unions will always be there. And that's why CUNA is existing to meet that challenge. And I want to be clear, I'm not pessimistic about our future. I want to be realistic, but I'm not pessimistic. I got to tell you, when you find out about what's happening in credit union space, you kind of get excited. There's so many positives that are happening. So it's not just faith. I know yesterday we heard a great speech about that future, and Brett Culp said hope is really important. Well, we have hope, but we also have statistics and data, and we have market analysis, and we know just by helping people that we're going to be relevant for years to come. But we also know that if we're going to be successful, we've got to be the best financial partner anybody ever has seen. Consumers need to choose credit unions. It's a choice, as you know, when they walk in that door and they decide to find someone to help them. So if we want to be relevant in the future, we've got to be relevant today. And we've got to be relevant in the present. And we've got to be relevant for those members, those neighbors, those friends, those family members that really matter. And we know that the challenges are as great as they've ever been, but we're designed and built, our DNA, if you will, is already set up to meet the disruption of the future. Our mission, our model, and our mentality, for that matter, is all built around people helping people. And you know, I think that trips off the tongue sometimes, and we forget what that really means. I heard a great story just last night. I mean, we tell stories so well in the credit union movement, but last night I heard a doozy. I mean, you've all heard about folks that have been helped out of debt, or maybe helping them deal with their credit cards, or maybe getting them into a first home. I heard a CEO last night that told me a great story about a gentleman that came into their credit union. He had been homeless. They had kind of worked with him, and he finally got on his feet. He was able to, believe it or not, afford his first mortgage, get a home. And after all the paperwork was done, after the credit union member and the staff at the credit union had figured it all out, they actually showed up. The credit union staff showed up and helped him move boxes to move into their home. Now, I'm not sure there's an ROI for that. Is there? I mean, if you said to your board, now what we're going to do is, we are going to have our employees show up and move everybody into their new homes when they get their mortgage. I'm not sure that's what we're saying. But it's like that girl yesterday that swam across the lake. 13 years old, said, I'm going to do something because I'm motivated to help somebody else. It's above and beyond that call of duty. So people helping people trips off our tongue, but we have example after example after example of how it's been put to work and why that difference is part of our DNA, and that difference is something that we need to celebrate. And it's part of our value proposition. You know, when we talk about the credit union value proposition, there will be some who say, well, you're kind of an old model, you know, 1934, which is quite a long time ago. In fact, it's actually, the anniversary is today of when Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Federal Credit Union Act into law in 1934. You know, that's a long time ago. How are you relevant today? Well, just listen to what's happening on the internet. Open up any of these new financial sharing apps. The whole sharing economy, peer-to-peer lending, is basically what we do. They've called it new things. It's no longer maybe people helping people or something that they call the credit union model, but that's exactly what it is. We've been doing this for a long time. We actually have the experience. We're safe and sound. We're insured. We have a track record to boot. We're not just some fly-by-night whatever.com. I heard a good one on the Las Vegas television. They have now something called Loan Depot. I had never heard of that. Loan Depot. Loan Depot. There's no track record to Loan Depot like we have. And certainly they're not going to help you move boxes into your new home. We're networked, bigger than any of the biggest banks in this country. We're fintech. We have some of the most cutting-edge financial technology in the entire financial services industry. But in addition to being fintech, we're human tech. We have the ability to make ourselves technologically advanced and at the same time get down right next to that member and make them understand that we can help their dreams thrive. We can help them reach their potential. We can empower them. We can advance what they want to do. And it's about them. It's about their dream. We put their dreams first. It's not just putting people first, it's putting their dreams first. It's putting what they desire. It's putting what they hope for first before anything else. And that's what being a best financial partner is all about. We're small enough to deal with that, and yet big enough to do anything we want to do. Our membership is growing across the country. Here's the good news. We're growing. Mark said growing is winning. I've been saying that since I came in here. I think that's our victory. How can we grow market share? How can we grow membership? Membership is growing across the country. Almost 110 million members now, strong. We also see auto loans growing, mortgages growing, individual savings are growing. We're empowering people and we're advancing their dreams. In short, we're already America's best financial partner. But I hope you sense a little bit of urgency in my voice, because I've been president now of CUNA for a little over 2 years, and I've tried to listen carefully to what you wanted me to do. You've given me a lot of good advice, but the one that rings in my ear constantly is the challenge you gave to me to be bold, to be aggressive, to challenge you. People would say, I want you to challenge us. And so I'd ask them, what do you think the challenge is? And they said, well, we don't want to be the lowest common denominator anymore. We don't want to just be on defense. We want people to understand the credit union different than they ever have before. We want policymakers to maybe even fear us a little bit. Not just respect us. We have respect. We get in all the offices. But when we get in, we want them to say, hey, wait a minute. The credit unions are here. Big things might happen if we don't listen, if we don't respond, if we're not their friend. And so you told me, challenge us. And so the last few GACs and America's Credit Union Conferences, we have tried to promote this issue of future relevance and disruption and resilience and how we can improve the marketplace and be successful for years to come. But it's not just talking about it. CUNA has developed a plan. Under our leadership, what we're trying to do is 4 parts, and let me just cover them real quick, because I want you to understand, if you're going to get out of the stands and stop just being a fan and get into the game and be a player, I've got a role for you. I've got a role for you if you're going to be a player on this team. 4 things that we're working on that I want you to understand, because I want to see if you've got a slot to play on this team. Number 1, 360-degree bold advocacy. Advocacy offense to remove barriers between you and your members so that we can be successful for years to come. And I got to tell you, it's offense. It's not just defense. It's not just going in and saying, please don't do this to us. Please stop the regulatory burden. We have gone forward and we have told them exactly the kinds of changes we want to make so that we can be successful. We're not banks. We don't want to be banks. We don't want to be treated like banks. We are tired of the one-size-fits-all regulatory burden that Washington, that regulators, that I'm sure well-meaning people are just shoving down to protect themselves, not consumers, to protect themselves, protecting politicians from the backlash that happened as a result of the financial crisis. They're shoving those down on us to protect themselves, not to protect consumers. We were for consumers before it was cool, and we don't need any lectures from Richard Cordray or the CFPB or any other politician to tell us about our model and why we support consumers. And we're aggressive when people mistreat our members too. We have taken folks to court over cybersecurity issues because we're tired of being held to a standard that no one else is being held to. We want to make sure that our members are treated the way we want to treat them, and we treat them on a daily basis. So when we talk about advocacy, we're on offense. We're aggressive. We're bold. We're coming at it not only from Congress and the regulators, like the work we did with the NCUA to remove barriers like the exam process and cycle, like expanding fields of membership, like expanding member business lending. We're aggressive when it comes to CFPB. Many of you helped with the project. Many of the leagues helped us that we did interdependently in order to get almost 400 members of Congress and senators to sign a letter to Richard Cordray saying, get us an exemption from the CFPB because we're different. We didn't cause the crisis in 2008, and we shouldn't be held to the standard of Wells Fargo and Bank of America. So we're on offense when it comes to advocacy, and we need your help in that. I'm proud to announce that we are now signed up 500 credit unions into what we call the Member Activation Program, the Member Education Program. This is the program where you, through your voice and your credit union, are communicating the credit union difference, some of the regulatory burden, the justification for our tax status, and cybersecurity, to educate them about why they should be, as owners and members, involved in the public policy discussion and debate. Over 500 credit unions now are aggressively touching and talking to over 20 million members on these important topics, and we need to build more. So if you're not part of that, that's the first place you can play. In your voice, with our messaging, we can help you empower your members and get them involved in the advocacy army that we have with CUNA and the leagues. So that's the first, is advocacy. Second big thing, if we're going to meet the disruption challenges of the future and actually become the disruptors, if you will, is we need to create the difference that is out there in the marketplace. We need to educate people about the credit union difference. We need to create awareness about what credit unions are, and we need to do it together. You're going to hear from this stage tomorrow some of the effort, some of the work that we're already doing when it comes to this Creating Awareness initiative. Teresa Freeborn and a national group of experts have come together in a very diverse sort of way, not just from CUNA, but also from CUNA Mutual, from PSCU, from Co-op, from a number of our leagues, and from credit unions across the country, saying we are going to solve the problem once and for all, hopefully, about creating understanding about credit unions and why they're different, why they're special, and why people ought to join and be part of the credit union movement. The interesting thing, though, is this is all research-based. None of this is just, Jim and Douglas and a few of us sitting around a campfire saying, I think I've got a really good ad campaign. Let's call it, instead of Got Milk, let's call it Got Credit Union. No, that's not what we're doing. We're basing this on research. And the first thing we did is we tested consumers. We said, what do you know about credit unions? Let's test some language on you, see what you think. Interestingly enough, we found out there's some bad or poor perceptions about what credit unions are and how we're different and how we might be special. The first one I'll just highlight, they're going to do a much better job tomorrow, but let me just give you a taste. The first one's going to blow your mind, and it just tells you about why we've got to be more deliberate in the language we use. First one, believe it or not, they don't understand the word member. This is by perception. They say, we don't understand. When you say member, we don't understand that. And these are people, some of them are already credit union members, believe it or not. But particularly the millennials, particularly people who are outside our credit union space already, don't understand. We look at it and we say membership is a benefit. They see it as a barrier by perception. Now, I'm not saying we change and all of a sudden we're not members anymore, but we can't throw words around without explaining them. And we all have to do a better job of not just singing around the campfire to ourselves and using words we've always used because they always work to us. And we've got to recognize that if we're going to encourage any new person to walk through our door, that we've got to speak to them in a language that they understand and can connect with. All right, so that was the first one that blew my mind. Second myth, if you will, that I'll highlight is they said, you know what? Our perception is that credit unions are only for the poor. Only for the poor. In fact, they had this belief that credit unions worked when I needed them when I was younger, maybe first car or something like that, or when I really was poor. But then I graduated. Now I can go to a bank. It's like weird. Isn't that strange? People don't understand that we are big enough to solve any problem that any member has. In fact, we can help them reach their dreams. We want to help them reach their dreams. We can help them be empowered and advance along the way. But they have the perception, and again, we've got to be careful because we all know we can help folks that have financial struggles. We can help them learn. We can help them connect to new products and services, to reach them and to lift them out of that poverty and reach them and lift them out of that kind of financial mud puddle. But in addition to that, we're good enough, we're big enough, we've got the right model, the message and mentality in order to make sure that they can advance and be empowered for years to come. We're not only for people in the very beginning, or the people who might be in financial trouble. So that was the second myth that came up. The third is that we just don't have scale. We don't have technology. I might not be able to get my money. If I put my money in a credit union, will I even be able to get it? They had never heard of shared brand. They don't know what shared ATM. They don't know about our ATM network. They don't know we're bigger than Bank of America when it comes to that. We're not connecting with them on some of the basic topics that we take for granted that they ought to just know. And so what we want to do is we're putting this initiative together along with a lot of other research and testing to build a platform so that people can understand what a credit union is. Just in your spare time, I'm not telling you to do it during my speech, but just Google credit union and read what it says in Wikipedia. Some of it's, pretty accurate, but some of it is like, really? That's the best we can do? We've got to do a better job of creating that credit union platform, so that's why that's the second. Creating awareness, advocacy. The third is we've got to create solutions for the future, and we've got to do it together. That's 3 and 4. We've got to create solutions, and it's compliance. CUNA and the leagues have an amazing compliance platform. In fact, I just found out last month alone, 34,000 files involving compliance were downloaded from our compliance community platform that so many of your compliance professionals use. It's amazing. The community is really compliance officers helping themselves, using our experts at CUNA and the leagues in order to gain knowledge, to gain expertise, to share information, to share best practices in their own language, and getting fresh data all the time in order to ensure they're on the cutting edge so that they can deal with compliance challenges. But it's not just here and today. It's also looking around the corner and saying, what do we need in order to be the disruptor in the future? It's the reason why CUNA launched a project that we did together with the National Credit Union Roundtable and others with regard to using the technology of blockchain to see if we couldn't create our own payment rail system for credit unions, or a credit union ledger, a CU shared ledger, if you will. We're still in the experiment stage for that, but it's looking around the corner and saying, what can we all do together to solve problems, to be the disruptors in the marketplace so that we can be successful? That's part of the 360 degrees that we need if we're going to be here for years to come. Now, I recognize that all of that we do in an office in Washington or Madison or in our state leagues is important, but I got to tell you, to me, and I say this with as much sincerity as I possibly can, our value proposition is sitting in the chair you occupy and is sitting right next to you. Can I say that again? You're our value proposition. I can't do this myself. It's not a team of one. This is a team of teams. It's not a team of just the people in this room. 800's a good start. It's that team of 273,000 credit union professionals. It's that team of 57,000 making sure that we get all of those board members involved. It's making sure that we reach out to our credit union members and build a team so that our value proposition continues to grow and succeed. Now, we began, I should say, yesterday with a great inspirational speech from Brett Culp. He did a fantastic job. I don't know about you. I saw some tears in the audience, and I think he connected. He certainly connected with me about leadership. What can a leader do to try and motivate their team, to try and motivate their community in order to be successful? Today, you're going to hear from Guy Kawasaki. I just was talking to him in the back. He was asking a little bit about credit unions and how we do it and how disruption is impacting all of us. He's going to be exciting as he talks about the art of the start. You'll also understand a little bit about resilience when we hear from Mel Robbins. I actually was able to share the stage with Mel Robbins recently down in Florida. What a great speaker she is. If you're not motivated to change your life, to get out of the stands and get in the game after you hear from Mel, we may need to check on whether or not you're actually awake, because she is so good at motivating folks. And then last but not least, Neil Pashrika is going to talk about the happiness equation, happiness quotient in your life. and how what motivates you is what gets you in the game. What motivates you, what you're happy about, that special feeling you get is what you ought to reach for all the time. And I think particularly because we're people helping people, we need to understand what makes each other tick. And that'll help us, I think, as we're thinking about getting out of the game or getting out of the stands and getting in the game. So I believe future relevance of credit unions is what this is all about. You can get involved in the advocacy army. You can help us by creating some awareness of the credit union difference. You can help us by giving us ideas on solutions. You can do it at the national level. You can do it at the state level. You can do it at the chapter level. You can do it at your credit union. You need to get involved. We need a player on the field. We need you if we're going to be successful in the future, because we want to change the world. We want to make a difference. We already do it, but if we did it together, that change would be amazing. It's why we're America's credit unions, and it's why I am proud to be on your team. Thank you very much.